I've had a question about the creation process ever since I've heard the 17 seconds. And the reason I ask it is I had a dream. We went up to North Carolina this fall to watch the leaves in October, and we're just amazed at all the variation in color and the beauty of the mountains and the different types of light coming across the mountains. And all of a sudden I was just struck by a specific contrast between the foreground and the background, and the color in the foreground, the color in the background. And I just stopped and took a picture with my digital camera, and I just got total joy in framing the picture even before I took it, even though I knew after I took the picture I was going to have several minutes of enjoyment afterwards of remembering the feeling that I had when I saw the scene the first time.
Well, focusing that camera, there is something very powerful about that experience, because the way you focus a camera in order to find the greatest benefit in a moment in time is really what this science of deliberate creation is about. It's about finding moments in time to focus. And wasn't that contrast of light significant in the delicious outcome?
It definitely was, and I had a dream the first night that I came back, and it was one of those very clear dreams where the well-being just abounded throughout the dream. And it was like I was at an amusement park, and I was with a small being like a young child, but I recognized the vibration of that young consciousness as being part of me. And it was just eager and happy and everything, just to run and romp and play in this amusement park. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this ornery being throwing rocks at us in the amusement park. And I thought about grabbing some rocks and throwing it back because it was spoiling my experience of being so happy and in this state of well-being. And then all of a sudden, just almost instantly, I found myself at the edge outside of the amusement park in some place that I didn't recognize, talking to someone about how do I get back to the park. And one person had an opinion, I think it's over this way. Another person had an opinion, I think it's over that way. Then I realized I was not getting anywhere talking to these people that was in this vibration. I knew it was up to me. And as soon as I knew that it was up to me to get my vibration straight again, I was in this magnificent flying machine that I was sitting in that would respond instantly to my thoughts. I was moving along this ramp that was moving upwards in this flying machine, and I could move it just with the slightest thought, up or down or in or out, and it just seemed like it was responding instantly to my thought. And one of the things that occurred to me when I was trying to think about how that fits in the context of 17 seconds, it seems like in a state of well-being like that, that the 17 seconds doesn't exist anymore. It's like instant creation, instant response of the universe to thought.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes, it is. Your dream is a wonderful dream because it is responding to your desire for wanting to hold yourself with more precision in vibrational harmony with what you're wanting. And what you're reaching for, the reason that you've come forth into this environment of contrast is because out of it helps you to identify desire. You will always find a desire that is beyond where you are. In other words, you went to the amusement park. There probably isn't much in an amusement park that would really surprise and delight you as an adult. But as that child, in other words, what the amusement park represented was the new experience. And so as you were having this new experience that was surprising and delighting you, and then you saw, in the same way that the little one that was playing with you, so eager and excited, was a part of you, the one over there throwing rocks at you was a part of you also. And as soon as you gave your attention there, then you had lost the childlike eagerness, and now you were over there wanting back in, feeling sort of lost. In other words, that part of the dream was as much about the precision of thought as was the guiding of the spacecraft. That feeling of just using your thought to maneuver the craft to make it line right up with the landing dock was no more precision of thought than was the focusing in joy or the throwing of rocks. In other words, all of this is a dream that is coming in response to your determination that you're going to guide your thoughts. And we think that the reason that the dream came about in the way that it did is because it's coming in response to something that you're asking, that the more playful you are about it, then the easier it all is. You will never reach a place where it will be utterly easy for you to hold your mind on any topic, because there will always be something on the television that for a moment will take you someplace else. The good news is it doesn't matter if something takes you someplace else. And in fact, you came forth into this environment hoping that variety would take you someplace else, because in the going of someplace else is born the rocket of desire and then the refocusing. And so the thing that we're most wanting to give you about all of this, about everything that you've brought to us, because they are all telling the same story over and over and over again, is that it is a constant refocusing process. And when you realize that it is going to always be a constant refocusing process, then you stop worrying about where you might be in any point in time. And when you are no longer guarded or sensitive or defensive or worried about where you are at any point in time, then you can sort of relax where you are and gather the nuggets of information from where you are and then just refocus, you see. It's not about achieving perfect vibration. It's about managing the vibration that you are mining here, you see.
Sometimes in a state of extreme well-being, the 17 seconds really isn't 17 seconds. It seems like it's almost instantaneous in a state of extreme well-being.
The more in vibrational sync you are with who you really are, then the more you are allowing only those things that you're wanting, and the less resistance there is. And when there is no resistance, the less resistance there is, then the less delay between the idea of the thought and the receiving of it. This time delay is always about the bringing into alignment the belief that you're holding and the desire. And when the desire that you hold and the belief that you hold are one and the same, then there is that instantaneous thing. So what you're talking about here is reaching this place where your beliefs, expectations, moment-to-moment thoughts are so in alignment with your desires that there is no separation between them, which means that the universe is just yielding to you one good thing after another with seemingly no time delay. The time delay all took place earlier in your life while you were getting in vibrational sync with your own well-being, you see.
One of the things that I noticed was that the response was not only instantaneous, but that it didn't seem like what I'm currently calling desire in my waking conscious state was what I would call then just an intention.
Well, even more than intention, attention. In other words, as you were giving your attention to the ornery one, you were there. As you were giving your attention to the playful one, you were there. Let's say that you are turning your attention towards something unwanted. In the same way that there is not instant unwanted thing manifesting in your experience, there is not instant wanted thing happening in your experience. That vibration has to become the familiar vibration. So you could not easily go from where you are to negative creating.
That's right.
There would not be instantaneous going there either. In other words, it takes some adapting to those vibrations, you see. And so what this 17-second is just the intermittent or the interval. It is the interval focus. If you manage to hold anything, wanted or unwanted, for 17 seconds, there is a coalescing of thought that takes you a little closer to the vibration of whatever you are turning your attention to than you were before. Those increments, those 17-second increments, are not discernible. And that's why it feels like when you get into that place, it feels like instant manifestation. Just like when you get into that negative place, it feels like instant manifestation. It's like, where did that come from? It seemed like it just sort of snuck up on me. We said it snuck up over a long time.
It felt like I existed in a place that either time didn't exist or it wasn't important. It was only what I was giving my attention to and the joy in that particular moment.
Well, remember that what you were experiencing in that dream state is broader perspective. In other words, broader perspective does not acknowledge time. And also it's worth mentioning that 17 seconds is really a very short period of time. And if you are at the place where, in other words, if you're already on that edge of good things happening, you would not notice the increment of time. Because, as you said to us, everything's about the way you feel more than it is about the experience. And so when you get to that place where you are feeling good, then wonderful experience after wonderful experience just weaves in and out of that soup that you call your normal day-to-day vibrational offering. As you maintain awareness of your own vibration and work more and more to hold yourself in vibrational harmony with your desire, then law of attraction brings you to rendezvous in the culmination.
Okay. Here's a specific question. When I was a young teenager, I would cut out pictures of airplanes. I would collect all kinds of magazines and get airplanes and put them in a scrapbook, and my mother collected these scrapbooks and kept them, and I still have them at home now, of airplanes. And I would spend countless hours thinking about these different types of airplanes and what it would be like to fly these airplanes and what it would be like to fly in other airplanes next to these airplanes, and I became a pilot. But the thought process of just appreciating all these different airplanes and what they might or might not do in a state of pleasure over a number of years set something in motion in my consciousness, but I gave my attention to other things, and all of a sudden one day I found myself being a pilot.
Yes.
Once I give my attention to something that is joyful and pleasurable to me, and then I give my attention to something else, it doesn't mean that it dies right away in my consciousness. It's still alive and growing.
In fact, there are a number of things we want to say to you about that, because first of all, as you are taking pleasure from something, it's serving you on more fronts than just moving toward being a pilot, because you're using it as your excuse to be in the allowing mode that is allowing all things that are a vibrational match to where you are at that stage of your life. In other words, as a young boy, you may or may not be ready for an airplane,
right,
but you certainly were ready for the vibration of well-being that served you relative to other things. We would also say to you that even if you had not gathered all of those pictures and taken pleasure from all of those pictures, you still could have become a pilot. There are many people who have become pilots because being a pilot matched other vibrations within them as well. You seem sort of not surprised, but it's an interesting point that you're making, almost a detachment between the gathering of those pictures and the becoming a pilot. And it may be because as you were gathering those pictures, you were not necessarily thinking about becoming a pilot. You were just gathering the pictures because it was pleasing to gather the pictures? Or do you think you had conscious awareness that one day you might want to be a pilot?
It was just fun at the time.
So often as people are thinking about deliberate creation or goal setting, it feels like they need to do all of these purposeful things that are guiding them down this track of unfoldment. And what we're wanting you to realize is that anything that you're doing that is bringing you pleasure while you are doing is holding you in step 3, which is the place of allowing all of the things that the contrast has helped you to define that you want.
Okay, so when I was about 14 years old, I had my first girlfriend, and we spent way more than 68 seconds appreciating the value of each other's relationship. When we gave our attention to each other and appreciated our relationship for more than 68 seconds, I'm sure the universe did something with that. Does that relationship or the energy of that, did that coalesce or manifest in some dimension that I'm not currently in harmony with? Or what is the nature of that creation?
Everything that you've ever given attention to is a vibration that is causing coalescing somewhere. If you were to go back and reactivate that vibration now that you are consciously aware of a law of attraction, we think that you would be consciously aware of all kinds of things that are coming in response to that vibration.
And I'm just wondering, is the nature of the universe such that everything that any physical being has ever given their attention to for any length of time, say 17 seconds or more, are those thoughts becoming thought forms,
yes,
becoming manifestations in some dimension or another?
Yes. Now let's talk about this, because we're going into a new place, and you're really ready to hear this. Whenever anything happens, let's take something like the 9/11 events. That isn't something that was just conjured out of a handful of minds. In other words, some might say, well, what about those people who had been planning, who were on the airplanes? Didn't that handful of people, even if there were a few hundred of them behind the scenes, not just the ones that commandeered the aircraft and actually flew them into the building, wasn't that an event that was about a small number of people? And we say, really, it was a global event that happened as a result of billions and billions and billions of people giving thought over a long period of time.